Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keelan.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where big corporations are good, because this week we watched Kerblam.
By Pete McTeague.
Directed by Jennifer Perot.
And it aired on November 18th, 2018. Yeah, so you just gotta go for it. When you don't know how to pronounce the name, you just gotta pretend you do and say it in confidence and then learn probably weeks later that it was completely wrong, but, you know, it's fine. McTeague.
You're just doubling down on that. I was about to say, well, it could be Jennifer Perot, but I just went for Perot. Yeah. But you're just over here like, McTeague. It's McTeague no matter what.
Even if it's not, it is.
Well, can't argue with that. Can't argue with that logic, I suppose.
Not really logic. It comes down to it.
I mean, what is logic when you really think about it? You know, what is logic? But just a human construction. It could be whatever we want it to be.
Yes, you're right.
Oh shoot! I guess you're right. You got me. Well, let's just get right into it. I think that's the best thing we can do here this week.
Well, yeah, I think so. Especially, don't want to dwell on the tweet that I tweeted earlier today where I questioned whether this episode was supposed to be good.
Yeah.
And answers varied.
Answers varied, but also you came in today and indicated to me that you thought it was more mediocre than absolutely god-awful like your tweet would imply. So...
No, well, I questioned whether it was supposed to be good. And
but like
average / mediocre is not good.
Well, sure, but I don't know, the way that you word that, just like the implication is that you thought it was god awful.
Yeah, it is true that like in the context of Twitter, if you're not praising something like it's a god on Earth, then you think it's the worst thing on planet Earth. So yeah, you're right about that. But yeah, let's just jump right in.
The Doctor and gang are flying through the time vortex, running away from something. And then the Doctor realizes that it's like a teleport beam, and then there's a man in the TARDIS, a robotic-looking man
from Kerblam.
Yeah, it's the Kerblam man,
which is like space future Amazon,
or maybe present day Amazon,
a little less evil. It wasn't Kerblam that was bad; it was their hiring process. If they went full automation, none of this would have ever happened. Just saying.
Or if they'd gone like full humans, it also wouldn't have happened.
True. Or if they like actually, had an actual screening process.
Or a more robust screening process that involved a background check. Or verifying the answers the applicants gave in their interview process.
Or searching up their browser history and finding out whether they Googled how to make a bomb.
Don't know if that's legal.
Doesn't matter.
In a post-Patriot Act world, maybe.
It's Kerblam. They can do whatever they want, probably.
Not sure about that.
Anyway, this Kerblam delivery robot delivers a Kerblam package, replete with its Kerblam branding on the box.
Amazon does that too.
A lot of online businesses actually do that, even smaller ones.
This is true.
Have their own boxes. But they open the box, and Ryan is immediately absorbed by not literally. I think you have to make that distinction when you're watching Doctor Who.
Well, also in this episode in particular.
But he's immediately like taken in by the bubble wrap, which this is totally unrealistic. Someone who works in a warehouse would never be this enthralled and this excited to see bubble wrap. I worked warehouse for a long time, and whenever I saw bubble wrap boxes or tape on like days off or times when I was not working, I was just like, oh no, I don't want to see that.
So you're saying it should have been Yaz who was totally smitten with the bubble wrap then?
Sure, yeah. Maybe Grammy.
That would have fixed the episode. That would make it a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm starting to see where like Yaz has less to do and say and contribute.
Even though it's only been 1 week since Demons of the Punjab.
Yeah.
That's something I want to talk about at the end. That's the one thing I want to talk about at the end, actually.
Right.
So the doctor discovers that she's ordered a fez, but she doesn't remember, so it must have been in a previous life. Probably is the 11th Doctor.
Yeah.
If we're, if I had to put money on it, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
And there's the packing slip. On the backside of the packing slip is printed, "Help me." And the doctor's like, well, I guess we got to go help because that's what I do. People call from, they send out distress signals, and guess who comes? It's me, the doctor.
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters.
So they go to, I forget what it's a moon of Kandoka, I think.
Right.
Or something like that, which is the, base of operations for Kerblam.
The doctor makes a reference here that I thought was, in my opinion, is definitely a reference to Chameleon or K9, but we all know she was talking about Chameleon.
Wait, what is this? I don't even remember.
Well, Graham's like, it's pretty weird that everybody here is robots. And then the doctor goes, what's wrong with robots? Some of my best friends are robots. And I was like, is that Chameleon? I think that's Chameleon. Sounds like Chameleon to me.
Could have been any one of, the several personality-less companions we got in the classic show, like Liz Shaw.
Don't think she... Oh, I was going to say, I don't think she's a robot, but then I realized what you were saying.
No, I take that back. I don't know.
What's with this needless disparaging of Liz Shaw? I won't have that on this podcast. Not that it's my decision to make.
Well, you edit the episode, so you could always just alter / YouTube poop style cut what I have to say into something completely different.
I could do that, but I don't. What I do is if we say something incredibly politically controversial or socially controversial, I cut it out.
That's only happened maybe 3 or 4 times.
This is true. To never see the light of day.
Hopefully.
They're kind of being scanned here to be sent to to be assigned to posts in the Kerblam factory, and they scan the doctor and they're like, oh, you've got 2 hearts. And if you just look in the background, you can see Graham's face, and it's this shocked, horrified, what? expression, which I just thought was hilarious.
Flashback to the Sensorites when they learned that the doctor had... Well, actually, no, they didn't. They were something else in the Sensorites. I forget what it was. Something to do with... I don't know. I don't remember. Never mind. Forget I even said that. There was some line in the Sensorites about some, body part being weird. I don't know.
Well, I will shout out to Bradley Walsh for still acting in the background of the shot.
But not overacting and drawing attention to himself.
It's true. He was doing it very subtle, very, very surprised and confused, whoa.
Yeah, so they've infiltrated. They've already met the sort of hiring manager of Kerblam,
right?
Whose job it is to hire the 5% of humans that they
10.
actually hire. 10, whatever.
Yeah, her name is Judy.
Right. So Kerblam isn't fully automated. They have Judy to hire their human workers, which is apparently a law that you have to keep a certain amount of humans. Right. So this is sort of immediately we get a little more later, but we're kind of getting, okay, this is a future that has automated so far that a large amount, probably more than half of, the workforce has no place in work anymore.
Right. Yeah, apparently I think Judy mentions that there were protests that the protests are what brought about the law that there have to be 10% of... She calls them organics, but then she's like, haha, just getting caught up in the lingo, haha.
Right. They all get little anklets strapped on themselves, which are monitoring devices.
Group loops.
Yeah. Fruit Loops. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, Goop Loops. And apparently the color that they get assigned is where they have to go work. So the Doctor and Ryan get sent to go to packaging. Graham gets put as a janitor. And Yaz is sent to the stockroom warehouse to retrieve, I don't actually know.
Yeah. Yeah. Sort of, Yaz is in more of a picking position, whereas Ryan and the Doctor are in more of a packing position, just throwing in some insider in the industry lingo there. Apparently, I'm going to keep referencing this, but in my time working in warehouses, this is not how we operated because we were, small time or whatever. But like, so everyone kind of did everything. But apparently, this is how Amazon actually works. Some people pack, and some people, pick and find items, and some people just, do whatever.
Yeah, I think so. From my limited knowledge of Amazon practices.
Yeah.
So
Ryan and Yaz are introduced to the work that they have to do, and they're introduced to a woman named Kira.
That's the Doctor and Yaz meet Kira. I mean, Doctor and Ryan. The Doctor and Ryan meet Kira. Yeah. Jeez. The Doctor and Ryan meet Kira. Yaz meets some guy whose name I don't remember because he dies in his next scene.
It was Dan.
Oh, that's right. Dan Cooper. Dan Cooper.
Dan,
I
because he
name
was
down.
A dad. Just switch out that one letter there.
Dan, because he was danger. That didn't.
He was in danger.
Take that one back. Well, Dan and Yaz get like a notification to go get a package from, I think, the 000 section.
Yeah, it was the 999s.
The 999 section.
Yeah.
Shows how much attention I was paying.
Originally, it's Yaz who gets this order, but then Dan takes over, saying that the last person to go down to the 999s never came back.
Right.
We get a little bit of Dan's backstory here, too. We learn that he's a dad, and he's just trying to, like, support his daughter or whatever. Kind of implied that he is divorced, and because he says he, like, never treated his wife well, but he's trying to make up for it with his daughter or something.
Yeah, we've got this, this tragic backstory that Chris Chibnall seems to be so fond of. The characters who die getting tragic backstories 10 seconds before they die. Shout out to the guy in Woman Who Fell to Earth who's like, yeah, don't worry, I'll see you soon, my grandchildren. Puts down the phone, gets killed by Tim Shaw.
Yeah, it's sort of a Chris Chibnall thing that's, part of this era of, like, these very, like, lovable characters who are just good people all around, or who are potentially making up for the mistakes of the past, who don't deserve to die, but die. Really tugs at your heartstrings.
Does it, though?
Yeah, especially when Dan pulled out that little amulet thing or whatever his daughter, like, made for him and said, Dad. Yeah, it brought a little tear to my eye.
That necklace where he's like, this is made of like indestructible space metal that'll outsurvive all of us. I'm like, really? Looks like aluminum. Looks a lot like aluminum.
Well, it outlived him. He was right. Because Dan goes down to the 999s and there's I think they're called helper bots or something. Or
yeah. They're designed to look the same as the Kerblam Man, which the Kerblam Man was like the God, that's really hard to say. The public
Kerblam Man.
The public-facing persona of the company is the Kerblam Man. Jesus.
Yeah, a lot of the advertisements in this looked almost 50s-esque.
Mm-hmm.
That you kind of see in the background with the Kerblam Man and the font and everything.
If you want it, Kerblam it. Did they turn Kerblam into like a verb in the future like they did with Google?
Yeah.
If you want it, just Google it.
Yeah. So definitely, I mean, they could have played that up more, but sort of a retrofuturism thing here.
Right.
I think that's what retrofuturism is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Retrofuturism is like the future as envisioned by a decade prior to the one you're in. Typically it refers to like the future as seen in the 60s and the 70s, sometimes the 80s.
Yeah.
But I bet in 20 years it'll include the 90s.
Yeah, meanwhile, the Doctor and Ryan are very, like, non-subtly prying into who might need help at this warehouse.
Yeah. Graham's talking with Charlie, who's the other janitor. He's, like, bored out of his mind because the helper bots are giving him the rundown of all, like, 200 safety precautions he has to remember. And he's like, yeah, I get it. Just don't do anything sketchy. It's easy.
If these 3, like, protocol things happen that probably will never happen, you're going to have to remember this one rule 5 weeks from now. But then Charlie comes in and Graham sort of befriends him.
Yeah, and Charlie's like, we've got, like, a quota to meet on how fast we have to get to the spills. Like, if the spill happens and we've got, like, 10 minutes to get there and clean it up or something like that. And Graham's like, wow, that's a little extreme. And Charlie's like, yeah, well.
We're the only 2, so get used to it, buddy.
Meanwhile, the doctor and Yaz are talking with, her name begins with an A.
Kira?
Kira, sorry.
Kira Aro or something like that.
And she's explaining how she,
she's another one of those, like, Chris Chibnall, like, too good to exist people.
She's like the most pure-hearted person in this episode. She's like, yeah, I love my job, very positive outlook on life. I always look for the good in people, you know?
Despite my, like, tragic past, she, like, talks about how she never met her parents and, like, how life basically, like, ran her into the ground, but she's, like, just happy working for this evil corporation.
Right. And she's like, wow, okay, Kira, okay. But she's like, yeah, I just love people, love being around people, just all around trying to be a good person. And they're like, you have a very nice outlook on life, Kira. And she's like,
by the way, who needs help here? Did you notice how, like, not subtle the doctor was being about her quote-unquote, like, investigation?
Yeah, well, let's just say she's not the honed investigator that Peter Capaldi's 12th Doctor was. She hasn't learned the art of subtlety.
Well,
although, to be fair, neither has Graham. Because
yeah, you're right. Well, don't we, before Graham really starts prying, don't we cut to, like, this scene that's in, like, a little park?
Yeah, they, like, go to lunch, I guess.
Yeah.
And Kira drops her lunch, and Charlie's like, oh, I'll clean it up for you, I got this. And Kira's like, oh, you're so sweet, Charlie. And he's like, haha, you're so sweet, Kira, haha. And you're like,
great workplace romance here. You think at a place like Kerblam, which, like, if you say one word to your coworkers, they're like, talking reduces efficiency. Please refrain from communicating while on shift. You think they would shut this down, but, whatever.
Let me give you some life advice from the annals of Dylan Green's life. Don't date where you work.
Well, nobody in this episode does that. I mean, when it comes down to it.
Because of extenuating circumstances. It's not
death rears its ugly head very soon.
It's not like you can say that they chose not to date. I think the choice was made for them.
Yeah, so just sort of a little throw up in your mouth a little moment there for you.
I was fine with it. I the first time I watched this, I knew one or two of them was going to die, which is why I was fine with it.
How'd you know that?
I don't know. You just get that sense. You just get that sense that once you get this character who's too good to live, that she probably won't.
Even Charlie, I have to say, at this point, is sort of, he's kind of like Kira, where he's just sort of this guy who's not in this great position. He's a janitor for this mega corporation, just kind of down on his luck type guy. Until we find out a little more about him.
Yeah, thinking back on this season, trying to think, who was too good to live and did they die? And, in most cases, the answer is like yes. The one exception I can think of is like the brother in Saranga Conundrum who had like basically no bad things about him. He was just like his sister didn't appreciate him and he ended up surviving that episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was Yas. As far as we know, he wasn't a terrible person. As far as we know.
He had casual, unprotected intercourse on a vacation, Kind of says, wait. I mean, that's how he got knocked up with the baby. Did you forget about this?
Yeah.
They were like, how did you get pregnant? He's like, oh yeah, mistake on the vacation. Or something like that.
Well, we don't know.
It says a little something about his decision-making process.
We don't know the life cycle of whatever his species was. Maybe it was just like stub your toe and you get pregnant. Like maybe that was the mistake.
Suck. That would suck. Can you imagine?
No, yeah, you're probably right.
You just at home with your girlfriend and she gets out of bed and stubs her toe and you're like, oh, well, shit. Guess we gotta get ready now.
Well, in that species, it was like asexual reproduction.
Well, that species also popped their babies out in a week, so. Anyway, they go to talk to Mr. Slade.
Yeah, they meet Jarva Slade, who has been clued into like the doctor's questioning of other coworkers, i.e. Kira.
And is made out to be like the most suspicious man in the entire story.
Yeah, he's sort of like a middle management guy he's a manager, and he's sort of the stereotypical like not nice boss.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to say, this is the one thing that I kind of want to talk about in this episode, where, like, if you think about automation, and, like, I haven't done any research into this, this is just my own thinking, but if you think about, like, a society that's really automating a lot of the jobs that it does, wouldn't it be, like, the order I would think that automation would happen is, like, first you would automate the manual labor job / the, like, unskilled labor, so kind of like what they're doing in this episode. And then you would do, like, the middle management type stuff. Mm-hmm. Because if you think about it, like, really it's management that could be automated after that, or even before manual labor. It's, like, probably, sort of easier to automate management. Of course, not at, like, the higher levels, like, not at the C level, because, like, let's face it, those people don't want to lose their jobs and they're in control. So even if you can automate that type of stuff, you won't. So it would be more middle management. And then, like, last things last, you would automate sort of the creative jobs. That's what I would imagine. And then eventually you just automate everything, including the automation process.
And then you get Skynet.
There's this story, I forget what it's called. I'll try and find it and link it in the show notes. But there's this, like, sci-fi story that was written at least more than 20 years ago, probably I think maybe in the 70s or 80s. And it was about a war, basically a proxy war being fought by these two robot armies, but humans had already gone extinct. Mm-hmm. But the robots were just programmed to keep fighting each other. And they just kept making other robots to fight each other.
That sounds a lot like the Doctor Who audio story, The War to End All Wars.
Yeah.
Which I don't think you've listened to, but I have.
No.
It's the first Doctor story with the Steven and Vicky. They land on this planet, and they get sorted into these, like, groups. And then you find out through the course of the story that these two groups are just fighting each other. But they're, like, the same species, and the like, computer was just programmed to keep fighting. But it's fighting both sides because the only thing it knows how to do is maintain the war going on.
Huh. It's almost like the Doctor's daughter there with that little sort of twist. Kind of.
It's an interesting story because the first part is, like, Peter Purves narrates the first part, and then actually maybe it was Stephen and Dodo. Now that I think about it, it might have been Stephen and Dodo. Stephen never traveled with Vicky. Yeah, he did. I don't remember.
I can't remember.
Stephen did travel with Vicky, but I actually think it's a Stephen and Dodo story now that I think about it.
Heck yeah,
but Dodo. Yeah, Peter Purves narrates the first part, and what's her name narrates the
whoever played
Dodo narrates the second part, and then, like, the cliffhanger is resolved like 5 seconds into the second part where Dodo's like, oh shit, it's Stephen, but he's on the other side of the war. Wait, how does that work? So you don't really, like, get Dodo's thoughts for the first half of the story, and you don't get Stephen's thoughts for the second half of the story. It's a very interesting story.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll listen to it for the show sometime. Anyway, they confront Slade, and they're like, this is kind of suspicious. What are you hiding from us? And he's like, I'm not hiding anything. He's, like, sweating in his suit, like,
And you find out he's actually not. Like,
yeah, he's actually telling the truth. For once, the suspicious middle management guy is just, like, telling the truth about everything. The Doctor makes a, silly reference to the unicorn and the wasp.
What?
Get into
What?
Oh yeah. Did you not record the Doctor's famous people for this story? I'll mention this again at the end, but yeah, they get into the story, and the Doctor says something about hating wasps, and then she goes, "Speaking of wasps, did I ever tell you about Agatha Christie?" And I was like, "Whoa, whoa!"
Totally missed that. That's like one of those lines where you would, use that. You ever see that Tom Baker gif where it's like this rapid zoom in on his face, and his eyes are, like, really wide?
I'm sure you've sent it to me before.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. It's one of the best Tom Baker gifts. Speaking of which, today's Tom Baker's birthday, the day that we're recording this.
This is your birthday song. It isn't very long. So
they learn that Dan has died.
Yeah.
The Doctor barges into, like, Judy and Slade's office.
Well, like, overnight, they sneak in.
Yeah, well, first they, like, barge in. They're like, people are dying here. What's going on? And they just basically tell them to screw off.
But then they're like, we'll come back tonight. And so they do, and they barge in, and meanwhile, Graham just, like, again, with Graham not knowing how subtlety worked, he's like, Chris, just, like, if I could get a map, I don't know this place very well, so if I could get, like, a map or something, just so I could see, like, where everything is.
Just so I could sneak around and find information. Clean up spills.
Chris is like, yeah, we got a map. We got the original plans, in fact. They're in the lobby, in this glass case.
This is the first indication that there's something wrong with Charlie?
Charlie, sorry. Just know his name began with a C.
Because he's like, yeah, I can get you those schematics, man. Like, just come with me. The dead of night, we'll go get them. But the doctor and Yaz and Ryan investigate the filing cabinet in the room, and are interrupted by Judy.
And she's like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, where's Dan? What are you doing with Dan? And Judy basically reveals that they were found out by their group loops because they got told. The message was relayed to Judy where they were, and they're like, damn, should have thought about that. So they kind of, this Charlie and Graham run in, they're like, we've got the plans, we can like find out what's down in dispatch, because all the power has been rerouted down to dispatch, and they're like not really sure why. And
that's happened before in the episode too, we just didn't mention it.
So one of the robots attacks Charlie, and he's like, no, help, and Judy tears its head off. And they're like, that was pretty weird, the system must be turning on us, so there's probably a worker somewhere who sent the message to help me. So they decide to, they go down to they split up again because Ryan and Yaz are like, we can get down to dispatch.
They just have to get on the like little conveyor belt chute to the conveyor belt system that they were told to like never go on at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, and Charlie's going with them because this is the part where they get notified that Kira has been taken.
Right. So the helper bots come and give Kira like an Employee of the Month award or something.
Employee of the Day award.
Whatever. And they take her to like this sketch little like concrete room underground.
Yeah, so and the Doctor, Graham, and Judy are currently working on loading up Kerblam version 1.0 in this ancient Kerblam delivery bot that they named Twirly.
Yeah, because it's revealed that Slade and Judy actually both knew about the disappearances and were just doing their own investigation of it.
And doing the best they could because apparently upper management, like, there's no one for them to report this to because Kerblam has its own jurisdiction and Slade is like, no one above me will listen to me.
Yeah, like when it comes down to it at the end of the day, at the end of this episode, like they were actually like just doing the best they could with what they had.
Yeah, and the Doctor kind of like really hastily accused them of being terrible people. Again, kind of tying into that thing we talked about last week, where it seems a lot of the stories this episode kind of seem to show a different side to the Doctor, where she may be not on the right side for once.
Or like a different side to the characters that the Doctor like accuses, who like in the past of Doctor Who would always be the villains. Not always, but like a lot of the time would end up being like the villain. But if you think about like Saranga Conundrum, the Doctor starts ordering around and accusing the medic guy, but he was actually
Astos.
Yeah, Astos.
Can't believe I remember his name.
Demons of the Punjab, the Doctor thinks that it's the Thajarans behind it, but it's not. And here's kind of the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Also in like Rosa, it's not really the same thing, but she gets the villain's plan like completely wrong. She thinks he's there to like kill Rosa, and he's actually just like, no, I'm just gonna nudge history in a slightly different direction by like changing it very slightly. And she's like, well, that's just as bad. But she was still completely and utterly wrong. Yeah,
if we're going down that road, it even happened in The Woman Who Fell to Earth, where the Doctor, I forget what it was, but she was like, my original hypothesis was wrong. This is actually...
Oh yeah, because she thought it was two aliens fighting over Earth, but then it turned out to just be Tim Shaw.
Yeah.
Anyway, Twisty's my favorite character in this story.
Twirly.
He's got so much character in the 10 seconds he's got.
He's like an Amazon Alexa, or like a personal assistant.
An extremely anxious Amazon Alexa.
Well, no, it's
Amazon
like
Alexa with anxiety add-on.
It's like the thing of like, hey Alexa, can you like can you like call like whoever. And then all of a sudden, like, your toaster, like, starts going and, like, the TV turns on and, just the horrors of having a smart home.
It reminds me of that, I don't know if you've ever seen the advertisement, but it's like, oh no, we've lost Alexa's voice. Activate the backups. And then someone asks for, like, a recipe, and then Gordon Ramsay just starts shouting out at Alexa, like, you're terrible at this. Why are you so bad at making this recipe? And the guy's like, what? What is happening? Getting accosted by Gordon Ramsay through his Amazon Alexa.
Man, maybe it's worth all the like spying if that's what it takes to like have Gordon Ramsay in the comfort of your own home. So eventually they hook up Twirly to the system to find out like what is actually going on, and they find out that it was the system all along.
Yeah. Because the system's like, help me, and she's like, Twirly, what's wrong? And he's like, this is not Twirly, this is the system speaking. This is Kerblam itself. Help me. And the doctor's like, what?
Meanwhile, Ryan, Yaz, and Charlie are on the conveyor belts. And they're sort of having a tough time, especially Ryan because of his
dyspraxia.
Dyspraxia.
Glad they didn't just throw that out the window like in the last time I think it was heavily used as a plot point was Ghost Monument, although I think it was mentioned since then.
It's been mentioned since then for sure. But like, yeah, I'm glad it's not one of those classic show things. This season is the most similar to classic Doctor Who of any new Who season, I would say. But unlike classic Who, it doesn't introduce the companions with like, hey, look at this botanist woman named Perry, and then botany like never has anything to do with it, you know?
Yeah, I still think that the most hilarious missed opportunity is how Terror of the Vervoids is the episode after Perry leaves. Like, plants are the enemy in that episode. Like, how do you make this mistake?
No, isn't it a couple episodes after Perry leaves?
No, because, well, it depends when you consider Perry leaving to be Perry leaving, because, like, in that episode, the version of events they show the Doctor is that she gets killed off, but then in, like, The Mysterious Planet or whatever the final part of Trial of the Time Lord was, 3 stories later, they're like, well, actually, Perry was married off to King Yakarnos.
Yeah, and that was the last season.
Yeah, so Terror of the Vervoids
yeah, it was a couple after that, because it was Mysterious Planet was the first one, I think.
Terror of the Vervoids was part of that Trial of the Time Lord season, though, so it couldn't have been more than 2 serials later.
Yeah, it was like 2 or 3, yeah.
It must have been. It must have been the immediate. It must have been the immediate second one, because the whole idea of that was Christmas Carol, Christmas past, Christmas. What does it go? Christmas past, Christmas present, Christmas future.
I don't know.
Because Christmas past, Christmas future, Christmas present. I'm sure that's how it goes.
I don't know.
Whatever.
That was the one Chris Chibnall like really heavily criticized.
Anyway, yes, but anyway, my note here is this is the shittiest version of Toy Story 2 ever.
Yeah, it does kind of look like the Toy Story 2 conveyor belt. It's also kind of reminiscent of like the Monsters Inc. Like door thing. So
those are both Pixar things, though, so the similarities between the two of those is more like understandable than the similarity between this and Toy Story.
Yeah.
So they get down, and the Doctor's like, there's a whole army of Kerblam men here. That's kind of weird. Also, where are the Kerblam women? Come on, Pete. So Charlie then sees, like, Kira gets taken into this, like, interrogation room, and she's given a box, and she opens it, and there's bubble wrap, and Charlie starts yelling, no, don't do it. And Ryan's like, wait a minute, what? Why do you know what's going to happen? Charlie, is there something you want to tell us, Charlie? He's like, don't do it, Kira. No.
I mean, as a viewer, the way this is all shown to you, the way it's all played out on screen, like, even if you're not an evil mastermind, you know that something bad is going to happen when she pops the bubble wrap.
Yeah, because she picks up the bubble wrap and she's squeezing it
and
lightly.
It's the only thing in the box.
And then she finishes squeezing it, and kablam, she blows up. See what I did there? And Charlie's like, damn, that's a dick move. So
on my part.
Ryan and Yaz run away, and they run up to the Doctor. They're like, Charlie's killing people. And the Doctor's like, what? And then Judy's like, Charlie, what have you been doing?
Charlie
like
starts...
a very scalding mom, like, Charlie, don't go killing people again, Charlie.
Have you weaponized the bubble wrap?
Oh, Charlie, you jokester! How could you?
Charlie starts twirling his mustache and adjusting his monocle as he explains his evil plan, which was that he was fed up with automation and Kerblam in particular, and he infiltrated. And he actually wasn't just a simple janitor; he had studied up on cybernetics and bomb making. He had YouTubed how to make a bomb out of bubble wrap.
Well, he's like, I needed test subjects to test that the, whatever he calls it, would work at this small of a concentration. And it does, so...
So here we are.
he basically says that he didn't take Kira, that was the system. Well, the doctor figures it out. She's like, well, the system was getting back at you because I guess the system realized that this was going on. This is a kind of a big moral quandary the doctor's put in here that's not explored like at all in the episode, in my opinion. But it's like the AI is clearly this burgeoning new life form because it's conscious and aware of the fact that there's a threat to itself and it's asking for help. Like, it's basically the artificial intelligence is pleading for help here, and the doctor is like there to help it, but at the same time, like, Charlie doesn't necessarily not have a point here with the whole, like, tomorrow it'll be 7% and then 5% and then none of us will be working anymore.
No, yeah. Yeah, I mean, as far as I kind of remember, which isn't too much, but like this episode was heavily criticized for like not taking a particular stance or at least an obvious stance on like, is automation good? Is it bad? Are big corporations good? Are they bad? Like, is what Charlie's doing right? But I think that's actually one of the more interesting parts of the episode is that it like presents both sides of this.
I mean, at the end of this, Charlie does kind of get his way because Judy's like, yeah, we're going to like work towards making this company 50 to 100% like people based again. So like, he does kind of achieve his goal, but the doctor's like, this isn't the way to do this. You're going to kill like millions of people if you do this. And he's like, yeah, well, oh well. And it's like, what?
Well, here's also the thing of like when they decide to try and, get more human workers again is like this society isn't at the point that the society in the story I mentioned earlier was. It's not robots making the robots. It's not machines making the machines. It's obviously there's still like a human workforce creating automation, creating machines to automate processes and stuff. Mm-hmm. So what happens to them? Maybe now they're out of jobs because automation, isn't being pursued as heavily anymore.
Right.
So that's even a bigger, sort of leap and moral kind of thing. And I don't know, I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know.
And also there's definitely the thing that the doctor says of like, you have a point, Charlie, but like you're going to kill a bunch of people to make it.
And he's like, yeah, well, that's what I'm doing. And the doctor's like, then I'm going to have to stop you.
This is the actual messed up thing, though, is like Charlie goes down to the floor where the robots are, and the doctor basically resends the packages to the helper bots themselves to get them to blow themselves up. Mm-hmm. And she's like, Charlie, you better come back up with us or you're going to get blown up. And he says no, but even if he had said yes, like, did he really have enough time to get out? Like, did they give him enough time to run back up there?
I mean, I assume she would have just had him teleport out with them because they teleported out of there, so.
I guess, but he looked pretty deep in there, I don't know. Doesn't matter anyway because he just kind of revels in his victory, I guess.
Well, he kind of seems, what are you doing? What? And then he gets killed.
Yeah.
And then, Judy's like, we're going to make this like 50% organics at least. And the doctor's like, cool, sure.
But is there a line? And even if there's not a line, this is probably like something that you could imagine happens of like, unless they cover it up, this is going to be a big deal. Like, automation caused this explosion at Kerblam.
I mean, Kerblam's its own jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're going to be releasing a press release like, we had an explosion in our factory.
Yeah, I guess so. Then again, you don't need a press release to uncover certain things, so.
Don't think anyone really is paying attention, if you know what I mean.
I don't know. I guess that's a good thing about like having your own moon to yourself.
Yeah.
Sure, journalists are doing the dirty work of uncovering secrets about Kerblam.
I doubt it.
Though, so
they're probably too giddy about the fact that they can get everything delivered in like 30 seconds because it's teleport based.
Yeah, for as bad of like a company as Amazon is, and how like actually not good a lot of the things they do are.
Yeah, do you see any journalists like in the New York Times dropping big hit pieces on Amazon?
Oh,
no.
Well, I mean, I was going to say like it's so easy to just like go on there and like, man, one click and it's there 20 minutes later at your door. Like I was going that route, but like, yeah, sure. That's true too.
Yeah, they do have 1-day delivery now, including 2-hour delivery on certain items. So, we're getting there.
Yeah,
with drones too.
Yeah.
The future's now.
Yeah, within this decade, it's going to be like everything you order, as long as you're part of the Prime or whatever payment service they make you, fork up for. Like, it's going to be, as soon as you order it, it's pretty much there, because they're starting to, I actually started this a couple years ago, but now it's really taking off. They're starting to pre-pack items that they think you might want or that you might order together.
Great. Amazon, the future.
Probably taking a loss when you don't order those items.
But I'm sure someone did the cost-benefit analysis somewhere. Anyway, I don't really have much to talk about now, except for the fact that Yaz already getting shoved to the sidelines, which is, I think, noticeable because she, what is her contribution to the plot in this episode?
Well, let's talk about how it actually ends, because they go back to the TARDIS, and then I think it's Yaz who says she wants to deliver the little necklace, so that's at least good.
Yeah, but what else is her contribution to the plot? Graham gets the plans. Ryan is the one who's like, I know how to get down to dispatch, and is how, him, Yaz, and Charlie get down there. But what does Yaz do? And I think it's noticeable because last week, even though last week was a quote Yaz episode unquote, with Yaz's grandma and her whole family really, and the focus was on her. But even within that episode, Graham and Ryan had things to do. Graham and Ryan were working with Prem, and Ryan goes with the doctor when they go hunting for the guy who killed the holy man.
Well, I would say that their biggest contribution in that episode was actually through their dialogue, with what Graham had to say to Yaz, and then Ryan, especially on the Stag Night thing and that topic, which we touched on all that stuff last week. But in a way, this episode feels kind of similar to me in that sense, with Yaz, meeting Dan and kind of talking with him and being part of that. So in a way, it feels sort of similar to Demons of the Punjab to me.
I guess, but in some ways to me, that doesn't seem to contribute necessarily to the plot of the episode, because Dan immediately gets killed, whereas last week I think it was more impactful because when Ryan and Graham were telling those things to Prem, they knew he was going to die, whereas Yaz didn't know, so it's not like she said anything massively mind-blowing.
Well, it's all part of the sort of world that they're building. The world they have to build here with Kerblam, and, this guy who's living on the planet, presumably, that this moon is a moon of, and commuting to Kandoka every, day or week or whatever it is.
Right.
So she's kind of part of that. But I mean, like I said last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, not every episode can be a Yaz episode. Not every episode can be a Ryan episode.
Yeah.
And it's better than what they did in, say, the first Doctor's era, where it's okay, if a companion is doing something, it's Ian. If two companions are doing something, it's usually Ian and Susan. And if the rare times that all three are doing something, then that's great. But,
Well, at least Barbara got to brutally murder the Morphos.
First companion to kill on screen.
It's true. We will never let people forget that Barbara committed brutal, not only murder, but potentially genocide. She was the first character to commit genocide on screen. This could be a Doctor Who pub trivia night question. Who was the first Doctor Who companion/doctor to commit genocide on screen?
No, unfortunately, we don't have. Well, yeah, we do have pub trivia, I guess, by another name in the U.S. I guess.
Well, you could always just play Trivial Pursuit at home. Not really
and
the same.
And make up the questions.
Yeah, exactly. Invite your friends over and ask them dick questions that no one knows the answer to.
Except you, of course. That's how you win.
Exactly.
Only play when you know you can win.
Make your own game for yourself. Oh, boy.
Yeah, so that's the end of the episode. I just found a lot of this boring, actually. I mean...
Yeah, I find it just kind of all right. It's not great. I don't think it's bad. I think it's a little confused in what message it's trying to send at the end. Is automation bad? Though the Doctor does kind of spell it out. Automation is not bad, but it's the people using the automation and how you use automation that is bad.
Well, I think it's actually very interesting that this episode is it's about how these topics are so multifaceted. It's not just hey, it's bad or hey, it's good. There's different perspectives and different things to consider.
Right.
And that's something that I think this season is really heavily about. So I think that's actually quite interesting.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Because, throughout the episode, the Doctor seems very anti kind of big corporation / automation. And at the end, she's like, well, big corporation is still bad, but automation, not necessarily bad.
Yeah, the more I talk about this, the more I actually like it, because it does seem to kind of complement Demons of the Punjab in a way, because like in that was Manesh like really totally bad? Like or at least I said, like I can kind of see where he's coming from. Maybe what he does with that is not the best thing in the world, but I can kind of see where he's coming from. And in this, I can kind of see that too. I can kind of see where Charlie's coming from. You know, can kind of see where Kerblam as a corporation is coming from. You know, they're trying to make money, and they are succeeding at that. And they're doing what they have to do that, at the expense of people, of course.
Yeah, Charlie is in many ways similar to Manesh, that they're both are misguided in the ways that they go around achieving their goals. Both of them are willing to kill people in order to enforce their side. And usually if you're on the side of people murdering other people, you're generally not on the... if you're the ones instigating the murder, shall I say, you're generally not on the right side.
Yeah, but again, I want to touch back on to this point. Like I can see Charlie's point of like, if we are just passive in our fight against Kerblam, like nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting counterpoint to Rosa, for example, though, where like the fact that she isn't violent is what actually affects the change that she wants to do. And I guess in many ways, it's kind of, that's also along the same lines, where it's like in these two episodes, both Manesh and Charlie, like, while they have valid points that I can see and understand, their propensity to jump to violence is what undoes their kind of movement. Whereas in Rosa, we see that Rosa is a very non-violent person, and that is what in the end brings about what she was hoping to bring about.
An asteroid getting named after her. Don't see an asteroid named after Manesh and Charlie.
Yes, so... that's what I was referring to.
No, yeah, I see what you mean there.
Yeah, there are some interesting concepts here, but it's one of those episodes that we've had before, where it's like interesting concepts, execution, maybe not the greatest.
Yeah, the more I do talk about it, though, the more I kind of like it, so I'm just going to say that this is, like, okay, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you said it was the least good of the whole season before we started recording. I said no, I still put Saranga below that, and I still got Saranga below it.
Yeah, after this whole discussion, I think I would agree with that. I do think the Pating should definitely come back. It was very underused and has
There's not much you can do with the Pating because it's indestructibly, like, godlike.
Which is why you don't necessarily make it the enemy.
All right, then. Okay. Fair. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, well, that actually does exhaust my discussion on this episode.
Same here.
Quotes, I have one.
Yeah.
The Doctor going, that's the problem with conspiracies. There's so much to think about. Just thought it was funny. And then the Doctor's famous people. She mentions, like I said, Agatha Christie and that reference to the unicorn and the wasp. Which is interesting because this is the first famous person she's referenced that we've actually seen in her meeting with them.
Unless they forgot.
Yeah, that's true.
Probably not, because there is that mention of the wasp there.
Yeah.
So, unless it's just all coincidence. No, I don't know.
Don't know about that. Well, the 10th Doctor revealed that he had like a copy of a lost Agatha Christie book.
Agatha Christie?
Agatha Christie book that has like that wasp on the cover that was like The Mystery of the Wasp or something. And the Doctor's like, yeah, this one didn't get published back in the day. Anyway.
Yeah.
If you'd like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decadentvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Kerblam. You can find us on YouTube at Decadent Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify, all at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Like us on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook, also check us on Twitter at TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. Next time we're watching The Witchfinders, but until then, the end.